Hey guys, DT here. We are going to be reviewing some the Grand Crusade cards today. So try out this format. We're going to go through class by class, review all the cards one by one, and see how they kind of fit, and just kind of theorize as to what's going to happen in the meta, and see how things are going to play out. So let's start off with Druid. So Druid's one of my more favorite classes. I think it's probably going to be my main. It's got quite a few good cards this expansion. Yeah, so let's take a look. Living Roots, 1 mana, choose 1, deal 2 damage, or summon 2/1 saplings. Very good card, great against aggro. Having 2/1s is much better than having a 1/2/2, in my opinion, especially on turn 1. It can deal with a lot more different things, especially with on turn 2 you can use your hero powers, so now you actually have 3 kind of individual hits that can happen. Get rid of, you can ping against, actually, playing this on turn 1 and having them play a Noyatron. The Noyatron will die on turn 2 to, 1 ping, get rid of the shield, and then your hero power along with this guy, or, whatever else you play to get rid of it. So just having the 2/1s is really strong. Late game, having 2 damage optionally is equally strong. I can see this in a lot of, maybe there's a spell power deck that pops up, a Malgus deck kind of akin to what's happening currently with Mallylock, or even the Mage one. So having that 1 mana, Thracian turns into 0, you could probably play both of them. That turns into 14 damage, 7 damage, and then 14. If you have both of them in your hand, you don't have to discard any cards. That's as good as, that's as much damage as a Wombo combo at the moment. So, yeah, really good card. I see this being used in a lot of different decks. Token, ramp, probably, maybe not ramp, but definitely token in mid-range. And probably beast for sure. So, really good card. I like it. Good in arena also. Next card, Darnassus Aspirant, 2 mana, 2/3. Really good stats on this card. Really what sets this card apart from the rest of the pack, especially in this particular expansion, since there's so few good cards in this expansion. Well, that's kind of unfair. There's quite a few good cards. They're just situational. And the Inspire mechanic's kind of strange. But the flavor text for this guy, Battlecry, gain an empty mana crystal, death rattle, lose a mana crystal. This is pretty much, especially in aggro-driven meta, this is explicitly better than what am I thinking of? Than Wild Growth. I'd much rather have this in my deck than a Wild Growth. Usually you only need the empty mana crystal to gain board control. It's nice for ramp. They'll help you ramp out things better, but if it's there all the time. But playing this on turn 2 and then being able to play a turn, having it live because it has 3 health, having it live through that turn, through their turn, and then being able to on turn 3 play a 4 mana cost minion that's Piloted Shredder or any of the other amazing 4 mana costs, or even getting up to 4 and then playing an Innervate and being able to Innervate out a 6-drop, one of your legendaries, is ridiculously powerful. And having a 2-cost, 2/3 to begin with is actually not bad, but the fact that you gain the mana crystal is just really good. The only time this is actually bad is whenever you already have 10 mana crystals. So who really cares at this point? At that point, it's like a 2/3. Whatever. I guess having Wild Growth, you get that extra card. Yeah, I still like this, especially for mid-rangey decks. I think this is going to be the new staple for mid-range decks, especially if the meta sticks with aggro. Probably this is going to be in my top 10 for cards. 2 mana, 2/1, Druid of the Saber. This is going to be a beast-ish type card. It turns into two different types of beasts. Choose 1, transform, gain charge, or 1/1 and stealth. So the 2/1 with charge is okay, not great. If you have to get rid of something, there's better ways to do 2 damage instead of using one of your minions. But to each their own, I guess. I don't think it's a very good use of a card, in my opinion. Maybe, I guess, if you... Nah, giving it 3 health, buffing it up with 3 health. This is not a good card. If you play it with its charge, having a 3/2 with stealth is pretty nice for 2 mana. That's probably how it's going to be usually played. I don't think it beats out the other 2 drops, especially the card we just saw for Druid. There's lots of other good 2 drops. This is really good for Arena. It's common. You'll come across this quite often. I could see this being quite a good card for Druid Arena, but I don't think this is going to see constructed play at all, even in Beast decks. Mulch. This and the next card are the 2 more interesting cards of Druid. I like this one quite a bit. I think it's 3 mana, destroy enemy minion, add a random minion to your opponent's hand. And depending on how the meta goes, especially if it kind of gets a little bit more rampy, control focus, I guess you'd say. In a control heavy meta, you'll probably be getting rid of legendaries, and the card you're going to replace it with is not going to be nearly as good. Even if it is a legendary, it's going to be a better legendary, and even if it is a better legendary, they've got to play it, and it's going to have synergy, and most, 99% of the cards are not going to win you the game. You're basically getting rid of one of their cards for 3 mana. At that point of the game, you're probably dropping another card for 7 cost, so it's either going to be an Ancient of Lore, or an Ancient of War, or a legendary, like a 6-drop, and so you're getting a lot of tempo, and you're removing a big threat of theirs, and you're giving them some card which is probably going to be crap in return. This is really strong. I think you'll see a big meta kind of shift around this. I think this is going to be in every single deck. Maybe not in the Aggro Druid, maybe not in Token Druid. I don't see why it wouldn't be in Aggro Druid, though. I mean, it is 3 cost, 3 mana. You can get rid of a lot of major threats. It's still going to trigger Death Rattle, so that kind of sucks. So it's not explicitly better than like Recycle, but it is a lot cheaper. You're able to play other cards with it. And that's the mana cost really makes this one really nice for me. I think this is why the mana cost is why I think this is better than Recycle and or the other one that basically just destroys the minion and gives them a card. I can't remember what. Wow, mind went all of a sudden. It is, let's see. Naturalize, yes, Naturalize. So that's destroy enemy minion, give them 2 cards. That's too much tempo, and especially if in the end of the game, it's 2 cards out of their deck, so it's going to have synergy, and it's 2 cards, so it's a lot of tempo. You're losing too much. For 2 more mana, I'd rather give them a random minion out of the entire game, instead of something that they probably planned against. So yeah, mulch is quite good. You'll see this everywhere. Maybe not in Arena. Nah, I'd probably play in Arena too. I'd still pick it up. Net 4 cost, Astral Communion. Gain 10 mana crystals to guard your hand. I can't remember if... Yeah, all the mana crystals stay. So yeah, you gain 10 mana crystals. So a couple of good use cases for this that I've heard, I can imagine. I think this works really well in ramp. I can see a case where you coin, innervate out an Astral Communion, or even on turn 2 play a Darnassus Aspirant, and then turn 3 you have 4 mana, so you play Astral Communion. Probably turn 1 you played that Living Roots, so you have 2 1/1s on the board and your Darnassus Aspirant, and now you have 10 mana crystals for turn 5, or turn 4, whatever you want to call it. So I guess it would just be turn 4, but you have 10 mana crystals. You have no cards in your hand, but you could play whatever you get at that point. And especially if you're a ramp, then yeah, who really cares? I like this if you're... So obviously if you're innervating this out pre-turn 4, it's quite good, I'd say. Especially if you're playing around it, like if you know you have it, you can just drop some cards that you just don't want to get rid of. You just have some crap in your hand, or some stuff that's you can drop pretty easily. The other good place to play it is on turn 10 or greater than that, so you could play a minion and then play Astral Communion. You use up your 10 mana crystals, or however many mana crystals it ends up being, and then you can play Astral Communion, get your 10 mana crystals back, and hopefully do something to get a card. So there's a lot of mechanics on different minions on the board, which can sometimes get you cards. I don't think this will see a lot of constructed play. Probably not. Definitely not a lot of arena play. But I think there will be decks built around this. I think this is going to be one of those cards that will win a couple of games just outright, and will sit dead in your hand in other games. Hearthstone definitely needs more cards like this. I like this one a lot. I don't think it's particularly strong, but it's definitely one of my more favorite design cards. The 3 Beast cards, I'll tell you right off the bat, I don't think Beast is going to be very good. Just in general. I don't think the synergy between these 3 Beast cards and the 2-drop is terribly engrossing, and I don't think it's going to overtake mid-range for sure. And definitely won't overtake ramp. So 4 mana cost, Savage Combatant, 5/4, it's a beast, Inspire, give your hero 2 attack this turn. Obviously you'll be playing this whenever you can actually play your hero power at the same time, so you can gain some tempo, not some tempo, but some board control out of the deal. You could play this on turn 4, so let's say your opponent played like a Piloted Shredder on turn 4, your turn you play this, and then this is probably a really bad use of Innervate. So why wouldn't it? You could Innervate out and Inspire, get rid of their Piloted Shredder. Yeah, then you have a 5/4 on the board, and they have really kind of crap on the board, so that's kind of nice. But then you just used your Innervate on turn 4, and you probably could have used it either earlier, or used it to get a 6-drop legendary. Or you could have saved it for turn 5 and gotten a 7-drop out. Or, there's lots of better uses for Innervate. I don't know if I'd want to play this strictly on turn 6. They would have had turn 6 or turn 5. Not very much you can kill, usually, with 3 attack with your hero power on that. I just don't think it's, especially with a 5/4 body, you're not going to see play. This will not make any deck. This will be okay in arena, just because it does trade kind of nicely, and with a 5/4 body it's kind of hard to get rid of, but for the most part, this is not going to see constructed use. I'm still not sold on Beast quite yet. This card would be nice if Beast ends up being a big thing, but that would drastically change how we look at Druid and how we play with Innervates, in my opinion. So Wild Walker, 4 mana for 4, Battle Cry, give a friendly beast 3 health. Kind of going back to the last card we were looking at, 4 mana, there's tons of really good 4 mana cards out there. It's just like 6 mana. There's so many good 4 mana cards. I don't know why you'd want to, even a beast deck, why you'd want to waste on something like this. So if there is a beast out, then you get 11 stat points for 4 cost. That's pretty good. But for the most part, who are you going to really give that to? There's a couple of taunts I guess you could give it to. You could give it to a Druid of the Claw if you're desperate. Not desperate, but that's probably the best use for it. But oh man, 3 health. Again, maybe you could play it with Druid of the Saber and turn it into charge and turn it into a 2/3, a 2/4 I guess it would be. And so it would last at least one turn. You'd be able to kill something small for 6 mana. There's other 6 drops I'd rather play, and on top of that there's other 4 drops I'd rather play, personally. I'd play a Piloted Shredder, I'd play any number of cards over this guy, so even in a Beast deck. And for that reason alone, I don't think Beast is going to have its staying power. Poorly designed card. Another card that I'm not too hyped up on. Another reason originally when I looked at it, I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be absolutely amazing. The art's on it's amazing. I like the idea of these type of cards. But then we saw it in play, in action, and unless they kind of change the mechanics of the card, I don't think it's going to be very good. Basically, 7 mana, Knight of the Wild, 6/6. Whenever you summon a beast, reduce the cost of this card by 1. It has to be in your hand to get reduced. So it's not throughout the entire game. And that's game changing to me, in my opinion. Because you wouldn't keep this on the flop. Not the flop, on the mulligan, whatever you want to call it. You wouldn't mulligan. You wouldn't keep this on the mulligan. So you probably get this on like a turn 4 or 5. And you probably would only be able to play 1 or 2 beasts in the meantime. And so you might be able to get this out on 6, but a 6 for 6/6 isn't very good. A 5 for 6/6 isn't amazing. Man, I don't know. You'd have to get pretty low for this thing. You'd have to probably sit on this card for quite a while to get a lot of value out of it. I mean, even like if you got this down to like 4 mana, you're saying 4 mana for a 6/6. It does sit outside a lot of removal. Fireballs can remove it. Obviously, it's not weak to silence at all, so you can't silence it like Boulevard. So that's kind of nice. I would say the average mana cost this would be valuable at is 4. It's probably balanced around the fact that you probably get this out on 4, which means you'd have to play 3 beasts ahead of time. I don't see the value in. I don't think the beasts are strong enough, nor do I think that you'd want to keep this in your hand for three rounds. I mean, maybe if you had a whole bunch of cheap beasts, but then kind of like, what's the point? I don't know. I just not sold on Beast Druid. I have to see it in use. I don't think it's going to be a big thing. Let's see. All of the beast cards are not going to be amazing for Arena. In general, you'd have to, again, it's just like Murloc decks. It's just like trying to build a Beast Hunter deck. You have to have lots of synergy for that to happen, and a lot of these cards don't have good value until you have the synergy. So that's just kind of how it is. And that's kind of also in the same case with Inspire cards. Most Inspire cards are not going to be very good for Arena, just because you need the Inspire mechanics really good when you're able to use it. And outside of that, the stats aren't going to be very great. You know, the stats on almost all of the Inspire cards balance out the fact that the Inspire mechanic is so powerful when it's used. And it's compounded by the fact that if you have lots of Inspire cards, you could have like 3 or 4 Inspire cards on the deck, and if you use your hero power, then all of a sudden, wow, you have all these powerful effects firing off all at the same time. But in Arena, honestly, me personally, I like to go for stats and cards that don't have a lot of interaction. That's just how I've had a lot of success in Arena. And obviously I play Druid or Priest in Arena, or Mage, for spells sometimes. But for the most part, I like to go stats. Stats in Arena usually wins, in my opinion. And a lot of the Inspire cards just are not strong enough. Same thing goes with Beast cards. Any cards that require a lot of coordination. And the last card, Avina, 9 mana, legendary. This is the legendary of this set, 5/5. Your minions cost 1. So, originally I was pretty hyped about this card, thinking about all the interesting things you could do with Innervate. A lot of times, especially on turn 9, Druids have, or turn 10 you'd probably play this on, Druids probably usually have a lot of cards in their hand, so you could kind of like change how Ramp plays with Innervate around Divina, so that maybe somehow you get to turn 9 or so, and you're able to Innervate out of Divina, and you have 2 mana crystals, and you're able to drop a couple of other legendaries. But I mean, quite honestly, 9 times out of 10, you're probably going to play this on turn 10, probably top decked, and you're going to be able to play one other minion because you had to innervate out early. Or so you know, there's other better combos to innervate out, especially whenever this is just one card. So you're probably not going to use innervate on this and get multiple cards out. Plus, if you did, then you're opening yourself up to brawls and all sorts of other AoEs, and it just kind of snowballs. Like that can be bad play. You get too happy about what you got, and you just dump your hand, and then you just get brawled, and then you're like, oh my gosh, I just lost everything. So basically, how I like to think of her is a 9 mana 5/5 that your next minion you basically get to play for free no matter what it is. You get to choose something out of your hand and you get to drop it. That's how I like to think of her, because she's not going to last more than one turn. She does draw a lot of aggro, so if you played her along with like a Kel'Thuzad, then things get kind of sticky for your opponent. In that regard, I think she'll probably at least be attempted in Ramp. Ramp plays a lot of Kel'Thuzad, and I could see good synergy there. Other cards where you have to get rid of the other card that you drop versus Avina. So, Ancient of War comes to mind. Obviously a Taunt Wall. 5 mana is really easy to get rid of, though, and usually pretty cheap end game whenever you're at like 10 mana. There's a lot of things that can get rid of it. I mean, it would have to be another legendary or Ancient of Lore, or I guess you could kind of buff this up somehow with like a Cenarius or something. But for the most part, yeah, this in Cenarius would be pretty strong actually. I like that. That's a pretty good combo. They'd have to use some sort of spell removal, and you might be able to. At least, yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's a good legendary. I probably won't craft it, but if I can get it, I'll definitely try and fit this into my ramp deck. So, anyway, so that's the set. Living Roots, Darnassus Aspirant, definitely the 2 wins for Druid. They did not have a lot of early game. This fills the gap nicely. Some of the other, Mulch fills a nice gap for Druid. It's kind of what Druid need, a hard removal. I mean, it's soft removal because you're giving them a card, but again, I don't think it really matters, no matter what. So, you'll lose like 1 in like 15 games due to Mulch, but I wouldn't worry about it too much. That's still really good stats. Drew the Saber, meh. Savage Combatant, meh. Wild Walker, meh. Knight of the Wild, you have to get that below 4. For the most part, it's going to be Living Roots, Darnassus Aspirant, Mulch. Astral Communion's pretty interesting, and Avina can be interesting. I don't think there's going to be decks built around this. I think more likely it'll be Astral Communion that decks get built around. But for the most part, I don't think Druid is going to change all that much. You'll get new early game, new removals, and that's about it. So, anyway, guys, hope you enjoyed this review. We're going to be doing a Hunter next, and stay tuned. Thanks, guys.